I'm the fifth generation. The previous four generations moved into Shoreline starting 1901. Morton Anderson, who's in this picture down there, he's in his cart in the strawberry field. He's on 15th Avenue Northwest over there. I can't really take credit, but being the fifth generation here, I'm the only one who has not lived at that property or grew up on that property. My father did, his father did, and his mother lived there. She came over with her father. I'm a software developer. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. My career was in software development for IBM for many years. A series of gradually smaller companies until I'm working for myself. Anyway, my father grew up on 15th Avenue, and years ago he got me started volunteering with the museum, and here I am. I started a year ago with Vicki. We're meeting Wednesdays and working on the book. We spent a year on this, but that's not really all the contribution. For the 4 years before that, Vicki and my pandemic project was working on updating the online photos for the museum. We started with, telephone calls and shared screen because pandemic, remember? But that's not even the end of it. For 3 years before that, we had an army of volunteers preparing all the pictures that went into the online photo library. And with my experience, I actually ended up writing the software behind it that runs on the web server that shows us things like this. This is a screenshot from our photo library, and on the right-hand side, there's little yellow blobs you can't read from out there, but these are keywords attached to every picture. And if you find something that in a picture that you like, you can click on the keyword, and it will show you all the pictures that also have that keyword. Really handy stuff. If you've ever been to Getty Images or iStock Photo, this is how you navigate a large number of pictures. We have about 2,000 pictures posted on our photo library, thanks to Howard Fox. He's here in the audience, who did a tremendous amount of scanning. We were able to publish those on the web. We have about 7,000 scanned. With enough volunteers, we could cover some more. So images are a lot of what I've done. And the first two, if you look at the front of your book, there's two images there. The first one in the upper left is the saltwater park. And this is a picture I took when I walked out there with my grandson one day. But here's the whole picture, and we cropped it down to a landscape portion of that to show off Puget Sound and the beach itself. The other picture is City Hall by Michael Remark. We found that in Shoreline News, and he gave us permission. In fact, he sent us the high resolution photo that we could use for these pictures on the book. We have 242 images in there. And this is my job. I'm a big fan of Adobe Lightroom. I've adjusted every single image for sharpness and color and contrast and cropping and leveling horizon and so forth. It was a lot. So my job for the last year, we started with a Word document without pictures. There were little placeholders, insert picture so-and-so here. And this is, at this level, was copy edited by Tess. Thank you very much. The words are in good shape, but it needed a lot of layout. If you've ever run a Word document, you know they're just a wall of words. So what you're holding now is what we ended up with after a year of working on it there. A big part of this was the index. Every good history book needs a good index. And this was 2 weeks of my life on that. And I'm not talking about 2 weeks of a couple hours on Wednesday. This was 2 weeks of let's go home, spend a couple to several hours reading every word, picking up every person name, every business name, significant street names, church names, things that we're talking about in the book you can find in the index. By the way, we don't index things that are mentioned in passing. So things like contributors, we acknowledge in the front of the book, but they're not in the index because the book isn't about the contributors. It's about Shoreline. The other big part that took a lot of work right up to the last day is this odd, even formatting in books. A chapter always starts in the right-hand side. That's an odd numbered page. And sometimes that ends up with the facing page being blank. Well, we never met an image we didn't like, so we would find images to fill that page. I've spent the last year with Vicki. If she suggested an image, I always said yes. And if I suggested an image I liked, she always said yes. Works really well in here. I love the images. You also notice on the images, there's history in each caption that doesn't repeat what's in the text. So read the captions in here. Every caption tells its own little story. Also on images, over half of them are already online in our online photo library. And you can recognize that as you go through a book. The accession number, the SHM number will be in blue. That's an indication that it's in our online photo library. You can go to the Shoreline Museum photo library and search for it. Or, better yet, we have the entire book, all of it, no shortening, the whole thing, images and all, are published online. So you could go to our website and follow the links under collections to the PDF for this book, and the links are live in there, and you can click on those links and go directly to an image. And again, once you reach there, the keywords will help you discover other related images. You can combine keywords, for example. If you follow a keyword to horses, you can combine it with, I don't know, you want to find a picture. Every picture has both a horse and somebody happy. We can do it. Technical note, I recommend you shift click if you click on an image in the PDF, and that will open the image in a separate tab. And trust me, it makes it much easier to come back to the same place when you return to the PDF. And then I'll leave you with one idea, not necessarily related to this book, but publishing today is a lot easier than it has ever been. Really, I tell people, all you have to do is make a PDF that looks like a book, which I've done here, and upload it to one of the self-publishing houses, or there's several others I haven't mentioned here that will help you more or less with publishing the book and help you more or less with marketing that book. We're in an age of miracles, and modern technology is great for this. I mean, this is an oversimplification. You need a domain expert that makes the book interesting and somebody who knows their publishing software well enough to make it look good. So books are often a team, but self-publishing is a wonderful thing today. Thank you very much. I think I'll turn it over to Vicki.
With any luck, we'll switch computers.
Everybody hold your breath.
We hope. Woohoo! All right, that was great. Okay, I think I'm going to stand over here. All right, a brand new book. But but really with old information. Let's see, how did he? So I like to always start out by telling you a little bit about the museum. This is the museum's 50th year of being open, and that was on the weekend of Flag Day in 1976. So this book has been a long time coming, and people before me really started this book, and I'll tell you a little bit about them as we go through. museum is, of course, a nonprofit 501c3 and #1 resource for local history. We have lots and lots of volunteers, and I'm sure there's an opportunity for you if you like to work at the museum. It's the most fun place in the world to work, and I can say that because I worked there for almost 30 years. It was really great. And of course, the museum has lots of programs, full service museum hours, lots of lectures and archives research programs, monthly program for kids, exhibits and publications, of which this is one. So, to the book, I would like to first acknowledge a few people who are really important in this book, and then I will tell you a little bit more about the book than Barry talked about, and hopefully I won't take too much of your time. There is the cover. Many of you have already seen it, and the book talks about the city of Shoreline. So I'll explain more about that as we go through, but it includes all the 14 neighborhoods of what is now the city of Shoreline. And of course, it should be said that the city of Shoreline was instrumental in the museum being where it is today, and in supporting the museum and this publication. The Elizabeth Pendleton and Elizabeth Carey Miller Foundation, For Culture, and the museum itself all contributed funding to get this book done. And then David Berge, as Barry mentioned, wrote the first 2 chapters of the book. Chloe Kopis, who was an author of the overview of Shoreline history, got me started back in 1996. And of course, Tess Stanley, Barry, thank you very much, and Kenneth Doubt and Robbie Grillo. Robbie is the current director. Kenneth Doubt was the previous director, and Robbie took over in December. So nearly 200 people and organizations contributed their photos, memories, knowledge, and research to this book. And a special thanks to Marvin Anderson, who's here today. Say hi, Marvin. Erling Ask, Tracy Tallman, Andrew Craig Magnuson, and a whole bunch of other people, and you'll see them under primary resources. But I just want to say a few things about some of the other people as well. Luann Bivens wrote a book in about 1983 called Shoreline, Steamers, Stumps, and Strawberries. And that was the first book that was really written about Shoreline. She wrote a series of articles for Shoreline Tide newspaper. And I'm guessing nobody here remembers the Shoreline Tide, except for maybe a couple of you. And Luann took her articles that she really did a lot of research on and published those. So when I came to the museum in 1992, she said, we really need a real book. My book is not really covering everything. So she encouraged me from the very beginning to do some errata on her book, which I just thought it was so wonderful. I didn't do that, but also she wanted me to write a book. And then in 1996, a whole bunch of stuff happened. David Berge wrote maps of early Shoreline for the museum in preparation for a new exhibit that we were doing. And this would be the first exhibit that really told the history of Shoreline. And including the first people. So David is an expert on the Duwamish tribe and proto-history of the area, and he contributed so much to our new exhibit. And I told him, when we publish a book, this is 1996, this is going to be the first chapter. And it is. Then also the same year, this is a year after Shoreline became a city, Chloe Kopus, who worked for King County Cultural Services, did a windshield survey of historic buildings in Shoreline. And she wrote the overview of Shoreline history, which was basically a very substantial, meaty outline of how Shoreline developed, and that was really my jumping off point. She said, I hope this helps you. A lot of it went into that first exhibit in '96, and a lot of her research I used to organize this book. So I also want to recognize Edie Lawyer Nelson, a Duwamish elder who was on our board for many years and a very, very dear friend of mine. She has been gone for a little while now. She was so encouraging, and she helped the museum very, very much with helping us to tell the story properly of the first people here and the Duwamish tribe. And of course, I want to thank Tess Stanley, the editor of this book, who amazingly still has hair, because I'm sure I caused her to do a lot of hair tearing. But she cracked the whip and tried to keep me on track as I was writing this. And also, toward the end of her tenure as the editor, she said, you know, you have to stop writing sometime. And I'm kind of sorry I did stop writing, but well, there's more, always more, right? And of course, I want to thank Barry, the designer and compositor of this book. It was really wonderful working with him, and you can see the results are so evident in the finished product. We met every week for a good year, maybe slightly over a year, and also corresponded by email and kind of lived in each other's pockets for all that time. So I'm really proud of the work that Barry did. He knocked it out of the park. It's just wonderful. I also want to thank Kenneth Dowd, our former executive director. He believed in this project and managed the conglomeration of grants that we had for the book, and he was very encouraging. He's the one who found Tess Stanley to do the editing, and thank goodness he did. He helped guide the early stages of the book and also assisted keeping me on track by forcing me to have meetings. And thank you very much, Kenneth. It was a good thing. Yes, I'll have a meeting. Okay. And then our current executive director, Robbie Grillo, who has now taken up the call and helped everything, all the tasks fall into place, the little things and big things that had to be done. The book is in the Library of Congress. So this is really a wonderful thing for us, History of Shoreline, first time ever. So that's really exciting. I know, but there are so many wonderful people. Ron Edge, who provided high resolution aerial photos from 1936 and 46. Without him, we wouldn't have the aerial photos that we have in this book. Brian Paterka, who wrote an extensive research document called A History of Locally Produced Food in Shoreline, which you can read on the Diggin' Shoreline website. Brian, wave a little bit. Brian's here today. Thank you for coming. He generously shared his incredible research with the museum, and it's certainly some of it appears in this book, maybe not word for word, but I plagiarized a little bit. I'm sorry for that, Brian. Constance Perenni, who was the City of Shoreline's Neighborhoods Coordinator back in 2019. And she introduced me to all of the leaders of the 14 neighborhoods who all had a chance to contribute stories and words of wisdom and do a little bit of editing on things that I had already written. So I thank Constance, and I thank all those people from the 14 neighborhoods who are, those 2019 people are listed in the book under contributors. And finally, King County Archives and Washington State Archives Puget Sound Regional Branch. You'll find a lot of their wonderful references in this book. Their vast holdings, photos, documents, maps, all kinds of wonderful things that you can also access. It's not limited to museums and professional organizations. Once you get a hold of this book, you can use it as a jumping off point yourself and go to these places and send me all kinds of corrections. We will have an errata page. There's, as Barry mentioned, there's over 240 figures. Some are photos that have never been seen outside of a museum. There's the interpretive maps by David Berge and one painting of the interpretation by Todd Gamble. The aerial photos, historical newspaper ads, and illustrations. It's 16 chapters. Well, you'll just have to see. There's early land acquisitions, logging, roads and businesses, a chapter on the Furland TB Hospital, a little bit about schools. As you know, we published a book about the school district some time ago when it was an anniversary for them, and that book still stands in good stead. It's a big book like this one, but still, to give the reader some background, it has to be explained. Why Shoreline? There's an 18-page bibliography, separate listings for chapters 1 and 2, government maps and newspapers, very easy bibliography to use, a 16-page index, A to Z. And so I think what many people are going to be interested in are the 14 neighborhoods. There's a chapter called Neighborhoods, but within that chapter, each neighborhood gets a sub-chapter. And there's a lot more to tell. I think every neighborhood could have its own book. I don't think I'm the one to write it. But you all who live in these neighborhoods, you can find the stories and you could write about your neighborhoods. There's so much interesting material. I can't even, well, I know where to begin, but I sort of didn't know where to stop. So that was fun for me, but it had to, oops. Why is it doing, oh, wrong one, okay. So I just want to tell you what this book covers. Maybe. If only I knew how to use this thing. Okay, so this is a cadastral map that I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this is a map that tells you all of the original property owners after Native Americans were forced to move out. And Shoreline covers the territory of Shoreline, covers from the county line to the Seattle city limits at 85th and 65th, and from shore to shore. Now, some of you may not know that this used to be what Shoreline consisted of, and when the Shoreline School District was invented in 1944, this was their territory. They built Jane Addams. They built Woodrow Wilson. This was all Shoreline territory. That changed. And this is the interpretive map by David Berge and painted by Todd Gamble. So this shows all of that territory. But there we go. This is the city of Shoreline today. Right here. That's the city. Now, the school district covers not only this part, but also Lake Forest Park over here. But no more does the school district go to 85th and 65th. So this is the city that is being talked about in the book. It's like kind of an eye-opener, I think, even for me when I look at this, at how reduced the territory is. Now, the museum covers the whole thing, but this book covers just the city. You'll see all kinds of wonderful photos, as Barry was saying. This is probably our very oldest photo, actually, this is early spring 1890. I put 1889, I guess, because the Holloways moved here in 1889. They moved here in February, and they had their first child in October. We didn't know who all these people were, but now when you look at the book, you're going to see about half of those people have been identified, which is took a great deal of research, but I really, really wanted to name these people. You'll also see things about Furland, as I mentioned. You'll see a lot about roads, because roads are kind of the essential builder of this area. This is Aurora, and this is the North Trunk Road, which became Aurora. It's hard to imagine that in 1911, this is what this corner over here looked like. So you'll see lots of photos like that. Here's Furland, oops. This is Aurora at 155th. And there used to be a bridge that went across. And now today you have modern bridges that go across 155th, but this is what it looked like back in 1913. And you'll also see some wonderful advertisements in the book that are just, they will tell you about how this area formed. Really very interesting to me, and hopefully to you too. Of course, the city formed in 1995. It was an auspicious occasion. You'll read all about how that happened. And this is our first mayor, Connie King, who was she was a lovely first mayor, really great. And of course, the city had lots of projects, a parade down Aurora, maybe some of you remember that. I know some of you do, and maybe you were even in that parade. And also the very first Shoreline disaster, January 1st. I know some people here really were affected by that disaster. January 1st, 1997, and of course, our City Hall. So the old still mingles with the new. I'm so glad that there are things left here in Shoreline that can speak to the past. We have several landmarks, our most recent one being the chapel at the Navy Hospital that Janet Way caused that landmark to be designated. And so we have, I think, 6 landmarks. You'll see them called out in the book. And hopefully we'll continue to preserve our history, not just in books, but in our landscape. And so we are history, and you all can be a part of it and a part of preserving the history and doing history yourselves. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your comments, and errata, we'll have an errata page on the website. Supposedly, you know, in every history book, there's 9 mistakes. So I'm sure you'll find them all. So thank you very much, and we'll be in the back signing if you like. Yes, Janet?
Vicki, I was wondering if you would pick out one story. You're the best storyteller. If you pick out one story about things that happened in Shoreline, just, you know.
Okay.
Wonderful, quirky story.
Warren Fessenden, who's not here today. I'm sorry, if he was here, he'd be really upset with me for telling this story. When he was about 12 years old and he went to Ronald's school, he and a friend went to Hidden Lake. So Hidden Lake had a dam that kept it being a lake. And the dam had like a garage door sort of thing that they could regulate the level of the lake with this little dam. And he and his friend decided to see how far up they could make the water go, and they closed the dam. And after a couple of hours, well, it didn't seem to be changing, and they got bored and they went home. The next day, they went down to the lake, and there were emergency vehicles and the water department, and all the place was crawling with officials. The water had risen up and flooded everything. And they were, oh. I'm the only one who knew that story. So now you guys know it too. There you go. Thanks for asking, Janet. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you all for coming.